let's go ahead and talk to another theist in Canada, Mr. LaRoche. What's on your mind today?
Yes, how you guys doing? Yeah, how you
doing
guys
all
doing?
right. Yeah,
very well, very well. Thank you.
Thank you. So my position is this: I'm a Christian, and I believe Christianity is substantiated, and anyone who denies that denies reality.
Okay, those are your claims. Sure.
Can you demonstrate that Christianity is reality?
Perfect. I was hoping you would say that. So I'm going to provide a syllogism. It's a modus ponens. So first premise, if Jesus can demonstrate universal sovereignty, that will make him God. Premise two, Jesus did demonstrate universal sovereignty in virtue of the fact that he predicted the universal adoption of the 7-day week as the sign or evidence of his authority over all creation. And conclusion, since every nation keeps the 7-day week now, the last nation being subjugated to a 7-day week was the USSR, going against their religious and cultural practices. That proves that Jesus is God. So which premise?
So if there was any nation on earth, and does it have to be a nation? Like if there was an individual person on earth who didn't use a 7-day week, it has to be a nation that uses a 7-day week. Everyone on the earth does? It has to be a
country. Yeah, it has to be a country because we're talking about calendars that were held for religious and cultural purposes. So in virtue of that, Jesus being able to subjugate all nations going against their cultural and religious practices shows that he has sovereignty over them.
Nations and countries are not the same thing. Nations and countries are not the same thing.
Okay, but I qualify a nation as a country. If you disagree with that, okay. Replace the word nation with country. So country, every country is subject to a 7-day week. You're under the sovereignty of your government.
So Jesus subjugated all countries? Jesus subjugated all countries? He subjugated Saudi Arabia?
But only in this very specific... Like, he could have made it safe for all of the Israelites, for all of the Jews across the world, really just for all vulnerable people. He could have made it safe for everybody and created a one world government that was reasonable and responsible. He could have protected everyone, but he used his universal sovereign powers specifically and exclusively to make sure that everybody used a 7-day calendar, and therefore he is the Son of God.
How many countries are in the world, Mr. LaRoche? Mr. LaRoche?
Wait, we're going all over.
No.
Thing, or are you guys going to put a whole bunch of things that's irrelevant?
How many countries are in the world?
First of all, it's based on a false premise because
I want you to answer how many countries are in the world.
Every calendar in this world, there's a ISO calendar. You go Wikipedia it. Every calendar.
I don't want to Wikipedia
7-day week.
Specific question though.
You said
that
Jesus
wasn't the question.
Subjugated every country, and I want to know how many countries he subjugated and how many are in the world that he subjugated.
I don't know, but they all keep a 7-day week. That's what I know.
All countries keep a 7-day week.
Yes, there's not one. Could you give me an example?
Oh, you called us. You called us, sir, and I'm trying not to let this go off the hinges. I just don't want you yelling at us, because I'm like,
okay. I'm not yelling, but there's no country that doesn't keep a 7-day week. All you got to do is provide me one, and I'm done. I become an atheist. That's all you got to do.
That's all it would take.
That's all it would take. That's one way of undermining one of my premises. The first premise is the second one. Show me a country that doesn't keep a 7-day week.
Why? I will be honest with you. I don't know of any. But I also don't know, like, how you're coming up with the idea that is what proves Jesus is real.
Yeah,
that every
the notion
country
that Jesus promised or predicted that this would happen, and then it happened. I haven't seen that prediction to start with, but even if I did, I don't know that it would get me here.
Did that even happen after Jesus? I mean, didn't Julius Caesar create the current calendar that we're on?
Yeah, the 7-day calendar did not become as widespread as it is now until like the last 50, 60 years, the fall of the Soviet Union. There were other nations, including like the French Republic, that used a 10-day calendar, and there's some exception finding to be found. But okay, every modern country on earth largely relies on a 7-day calendar. Therefore, God, help me.
Okay, can you repeat your last statement? Because you're all over the place. I'm trying to address one thing. You came with 10 different points. Can you address one point?
Okay, let's just go ahead and say that every country on earth currently uses the 7-day calendar. That proves
Amen.
God how?
I just gave you my two premises. You still haven't addressed any of them. You came with
right. I heard them. I heard them, and I did ask the question, like, okay, at what point did Jesus, if we want to use that label or this particular term, I know that these nuances can matter. If Jesus said that there was only going to be 7-day calendars, when did he say that? When was that prediction made or that prophecy spoken?
So now you want the evidence of the second premises that he made the prediction. I could give you that. Isaiah 66:23 compared to Isaiah 20 verse 12, Ezekiel verse 12, 20 verse 12, and Ezekiel 20:20. There's a whole bunch of verses. But I'm trying to understand here because I brought you a syllogism. Now we're going and trying to understand whether or not the syllogism is sound. So you agree with
just trying to understand your basic idea here. This is Talk Heathen. We ask people what they believe and why they believe it. If this was about trying to beat Mr. LaRoche in a debate, I wouldn't have showed up this morning because I don't care. What I do care about is the way that people treat each other, how they get their moral philosophy, the way that they choose to vote, the way that they choose to donate their money. And so I am very interested in what people believe and why they believe it. I'm capable of walking through a philosophical argument, and I would encourage you to do so with me, but I need you to help me understand you because I don't really give a shit about the individual points so much as what you believe and why. So please walk me through your syllogism. I understand that you expressed that there is a universal sovereignty held by Jesus Christ, that we know that there's a universal sovereignty held by Jesus Christ because he predicted or prophesied that all nations on earth would use a 7-day calendar. And I'm asking you to help evidence that for me a little bit.
Okay, so am I unmuted or?
You were never muted.
Okay, I'm sorry. I thought I was unmuted. Okay, no problem. So here's the thing. So now we're not addressing the validity of my argument. So therefore, it seems to me that you understand that if the soundness of every premises are, if my premises are sound, then
I'm not granting you that. I'm asking you a question that I would like for you
so you want to go to soundness
so that
before?
I just want to understand you as a person, and I'm losing patience. So please talk to me like a human being.
Yeah, I'm trying to understand what you want to argue. Are you arguing the validity of the argument?
Nobody's arguing.
Answer one specific question, and I will get a little bit touchy with that mute button if we can't get through this one specific question. My very specific question is, what evidence do you have that shows that Jesus Christ made the prophecy that the entire world would eventually use a 7-day calendar?
Isaiah 66:23. I said it like 3 times already. That's one of the verses.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, multiple other verses, but Isaiah 66:23 is good enough.
Sure. All right. Well, let's hit Isaiah 66:23 very quickly. 66:23. And it shall come to pass that from one new moon to another, and from one Sabbath to another, shall all flesh come to worship before me, saith the Lord. You are telling me that the passage that I just read is synonymous with, or ought to be interpreted as, all nations on earth will eventually use a 7-day calendar.
Exactly, because according to first principles, hermeneutics, and normative standards, the word Sabbath is intrinsically linked to a 7-day week. That's Genesis 2, verses 1 to 3. So when it says from Sabbath, I'm trying to answer your question. So when it says from Sabbath to Sabbath, in order for that to be fulfilled, you have to have a 7-day calendar. So in virtue of that, that means
I'm just curious because it says
deductive reasoning.
It shall come to pass that from one new moon to another new moon shall all flesh come to worship before me. Where are you getting the Sabbath? When they should new moon worship be mentioned along with the Sabbath worship. I don't understand where you're getting a 7-day week from new moon to new moon. Am I missing something? Mr. LaRoche? Are you there?
All right. Well, yeah, I think the thought that I would like Mr. LaRoche to take home with them is to just consider, all right, okay, fine. In your mind, your syllogism has defeated me. Your philosophical understanding, your hermeneutics are so much more sophisticated than mine. But who here is convinced? You know, of the no doubt thousands of viewers that will eventually catch this video or listen to this podcast, who has listened to this and thought to themselves, oh yeah, this verse in Isaiah proves that Jesus is Lord. And if there really was an all-powerful God, this is definitely how he would demonstrate his universal sovereignty. I would love to better understand where the hell you're coming from, Mr. LaRoche. I'm sorry that we can't hear you, but I guess we will move on.